Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers, every time I do the bayan here, now at the moment it's like every 4 weeks because we share it. Every time I think I'm going to cover a different topic. But then each time something happens that makes me think, no, I need to speak about this again. Obviously this week we have witnessed brothers, sisters, children being burnt alive in Rafah. You saw the bombs, you saw the images, you saw someone standing with a child in their hands with no head. You saw people being burnt alive. Just when you think the situation for the Muslims in Palestine, in Gaza, can't get any worse, it gets worse. Then I watched this morning the 9-year-old boy, his name is Umar Hamad. He was saying that he had to watch his father burn alive. And then they had to take his father away. He didn't survive. So he literally watched his own father burn to death. So this is the reason, whether I'm sorry if it's repetitive, but this is the reason I need to speak about this again today. And I know the bayan is not supposed to be like a political update or like a news update every week, but I think it's really important, first and foremost, for us to be very, very aware as Muslims of the events that are occurring and how we should look at them and understand them. Because it's easy then to get tricked, especially when we're in this time where it's very difficult because of these things that we're all seeing and witnessing all of the time. So I'll give a few examples, but then inshallah I'll try to give a different perspective to them as well. The first example is there might have been maybe some happiness about a week or so ago when people saw that, the International Court, they said that they were going to issue arrest warrants for Netanyahu and his defense minister, Yoav Gallant. So maybe some of us might have been thinking, oh, okay, this is finally some action. They're going to arrest him, they're going to stop the war, they're going to stop the genocide. But as Muslims, we need to be very careful not to see some of these things in the way they're trying to present them. Because ask yourself, say they did issue an arrest warrant. Because remember, this is not even an issuing of an arrest warrant. It was just that there's a request for the issuing of an arrest warrant. Say they did issue the arrest warrant. What does that even mean? Is he going to get arrested in Israel? No. Is he going to get arrested if he goes to America? No, because this is not just an Israeli genocide. This is an American genocide. Completely backed. And if you have any doubt, just watch the video of Nikki Haley drawing on the missiles, saying finish them, at the same time as there's other missiles there which apparently have internationally banned white phosphorus in them. This is what they are using against our brothers and our sisters and our children. This is how you get a massive flame, what looked like or described as hell on earth, when people were being burnt alive. And say, for instance, say the arrest warrant does happen and he gets arrested, but is it just the leaders that are at fault here? Isn't it that if you look at the political, like the polls that are happening, many of the Israelis and the majority of them support what is happening in Palestine and in Gaza today. They support this, whether they like their leader or not. Maybe there are many people who don't like Netanyahu, but the general person on the street in Israel supports this. Be it right wing, left wing, central, they support the killing of women and children and the destruction of Gaza. So we need to be aware that even if there is this arrest warrant, this is not some kind of a victory. Then also in the last week or so, there was a number of countries that recognized the state of Palestine. Again, positive you might think, because obviously, before the state of Palestine isn't being recognized, and some countries came forward And some of them sincerely, this is not a, attack on those countries like Ireland, for example, sincerely saying we need to recognize the state of Palestine. But ask yourself, and this is where we as Muslims need to really know the facts. On what basis? 1967 borders? Well, that gives away the vast majority of Palestine to the Israelis anyway. Or 1967 borders, but with the same model as which is in the West Bank? Well, that's oppression and apartheid anyway. So what is this so-called state that you recognize? Or one which the treacherous Arab leaders of the Muslim countries that they will help govern? Well, you are the same people who have let our family members and our children and our brothers and sisters be burned to death. What do we expect of you? So these political events, we really need to know what we are pleased about and what they are about. Otherwise, we'll be tricked and we'll assume they are victories. And then after a few years, like some of the Camp David Accords and all of these things, or the Abraham Accords, or all of these accords one after the other, which we think, oh, maybe things will get better, things just get worse. So we shouldn't be duped again. And we know what the Prophet ﷺ says. He says the believer is not stung from the same hole twice. But it seems like we keep getting stung again and again. So I've painted quite a negative picture, and I apologize for this. But we can look at it from the other side. Because, victory does not come easily. Victory does not come easily. And you will ask yourself, surely the children, the mothers, the fathers who are being killed and burnt alive are surely dearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the enemies. No doubt. Then why isn't He helping them? You might be thinking. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He answers this. He tells us in the Quran, so that Allah may reveal the true believers. Choose the martyrs from among you, in Surah Al-Imran. He's telling us He's choosing the true believers today. He's choosing the martyrs. And that those very martyrs will be pleased with their destination, even with the difficulty that they have faced. And also because the true place where justice occurs is not on this earth. It's sad to hear, but true justice will never happen on this earth. Only true justice will happen in the Akhirah, on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Allah further says, and we place the scales of justice for the day of resurrection. So no soul will be treated unjustly at all. And if there is even a weight of a mustard seed, we will bring it forth. Sufficient are we as accountant. So justice will happen. So we should be concerned, but we shouldn't lose hope, because justice will happen. And every person martyred will be pleased that they were martyred on that day, because that will be their pathway into Jannah. And every person that lost a child and that is going through that difficulty will be pleased on that day that they lost their child and had to go through hardship, because that will be a pathway for them to Jannah. And every child who lost their father or their mother will be pleased that day that they went through this hardship, because that will be their path to Jannah. So that's why we shouldn't lose hope first. Secondly, I said these arrest warrants for Netanyahu. Remember they also put arrest warrants out for the leaders of Hamas. Wait there. Those are the leaders of people who are in the resistance movement, and these are the occupying oppressive entity. How can you put the both of them together? But that's what these international communities did. But let's look at the other perspective. At the end of the day, this just further, if he doesn't get arrested, and if they are not tried and trialed for a genocide, then there's a positive in this, because it completely exposes all of their systems. Never ever can a non-Muslim or Western supporter, Israeli supporter, US supporter come to you and say that these are our values. You can throw them back in their faces. These are the positives. You can completely throw back in their faces what is the ICC, the ICJ, the Geneva Conventions. I know I've said it before. You can completely throw this back in their faces because they won't be able to show their faces anymore. Of they're shameless, they will, no doubt. But you as Muslims, we as Muslims, we can throw this back in their faces. This is the positive to come out from it, whether they are arrested or not. And even if they are, it's not going to lead to anything. And even when I say the state of Palestine that they're talking about on the 1967 borders, if that ever happens and we should oppose it, because that is giving away Palestine, but we will see what that becomes if it does happen. We will see that it will be like what is happening in the West Bank. We will see that it will be like what their other treacherous plans that we've seen in the past from the Arabs and then the plans of the West we will see the example of this. So these are some of the things in difficult times we do need to look at things positively. You know, this week I listened to there's lots of good programs at the moment online. Just be aware of them, you know, podcasts and brothers. People are involved in projects where they're trying to give the correct perspective of what is happening. And I watched one this week, and one of the brothers, he's from Syria and he's gone through a lot of difficulty. And he said that every single one of you need to be involved in something that is helping the Ummah. And that resonated with me because we can hear these lectures, we can go online, we can watch what is happening, we can see our brothers and sisters being murdered. But if we don't do anything and we're not involved in any type of movement and we're not involved in any type of change, then you have to ask yourself how you're going to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How am I going to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because what did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? He said, the greatest reward comes with the greatest trial. The greatest reward comes from the greatest trial. When Allah loves a people, He tests them. Whoever accepts this and wins His pleasure, or whoever accepts that wins His pleasure, but whoever is discontent with that earns His wrath. We can see who is being tested today. And we can see who is succeeding in that test. And I know I've said it many times, but our test is a test of ease. Our test is a test of ease in comparison. And if we don't use our ease to make any change or be involved in any project or any movement or actually be contributing to our Ummah situation improving, then sadly we have failed our test. And let's not lose patience. The Prophet ﷺ said, know that victory comes with patience, relief with affliction, and ease with hardship. We need to have hardship, we need to have patience, and we might need to go through some affliction. Otherwise, was this life and the path to Jannah supposed to be easy? If we think it was supposed to be easy, then we were wrong and we haven't understood Islam properly. I just want to give a little example. I think I'm running a little bit short of time, but I'll quickly go through it. I'll read it just to make it quicker, because many times you hear the example of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. May Allah be pleased with him. Many times, because we know he is the one that liberated Palestine. So it's very relevant. However, it's very difficult to say, be like Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. You know, none of us can be anything like him. But if you read the history and you read how it got to the point where Palestine, where Al-Quds, Al-Aqsa and this was liberated, then you will see many other people played a role before that. I'll give you quickly the story of Nuruddin Zengi, because he played a pivotal role. May Allah be pleased with him. I'll give you just the highlights, but please go away and read about it. Firstly, he was involved in unifying and strengthening the Muslim territories. You know, he inherited territory from his father and he worked diligently to expand it and protect it and make sure the Muslim nations came together, like Syria and Iraq. Then he had military reforms that he did, and this took a long time, by the way. There was military reforms and training and getting into the mind of people the discipline needed to be able to perform jihad fi sabilillah. Then he promoted jihad amongst the people and he collated people. Then he built infrastructure and fortification of the Muslim lands. And then he supported Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. Can you see there's a process? So if we have no patience and we don't read about these stories of our historic and our glorious past, then we will just assume that, oh, okay, I can't do anything. It's too big a problem to solve. The problem doesn't just get solved by an individual, it gets solved by people working towards that change collectively. And you know what? And just very quickly, I'll give you actions to go away and do. Every one of us should be doing this. Every one of us amongst ourselves should be highlighting the importance of understanding our Aqidah and our link to Jannah and Jahannam. Because if we don't do that, we'll never sacrifice. We need that link very strong. If we never have that link, none of us will be willing to sacrifice and do some extra work. Then we need to speak about Khilafah. We need to speak about jihad. These are things that in the past you might have been scared to speak about. But if they can bomb the living daylights out of our lands and our families and our children, then they can come forward with these rubbish solutions that are destroying more people. Why can't we speak about our solutions? The time to fear should be gone. They can't come to Muslims and go, oh, you're a terrorist anymore. Because at the end of the day, you are the terrorists. You are the ones that are approving and committing a genocide. The whole world can see it. You can't come to us and call us terrorists anymore. So these are things we can do. We can go out and speak about these things. And furthermore, we should expose all of their systems. Expose all of their values. Expose human rights. Expose all of these institutions. And if you don't expose them, and they're exposing it themselves to be fair, then we are not doing our duty. Because that's what the Prophet ﷺ did in Mecca. He exposed the Qurayshi system. He exposed those things that oppressed people. He exposed all of the ills in society. And we need to do this. So I say, may Allah grant us the ability to make change in this ummah. May He help us to continuously expose the plans of the oppressors and our enemies. They are not only the enemies of Muslims, remember, they are the enemies of humanity. And they are demonstrating this with this genocide. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah At-Tawbah, say, never will we be struck except by Allah, what Allah has decreed for us. He is our protector, and upon Allah let the believers rely. That means, however much struggle and sacrifice you do, Allah has already decreed for you what will happen to you. So don't be fearful. If we are fearful, then we don't believe in the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So step forward, sacrifice, and do what is required. And may Allah allow us to do this. Ameen. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم